I have pressed all the buttons. I think. Yes. All right, let's hit that theme music.
All right. Just remember what I've taught you.
What the fuck is that?
Hey, yo.
Hey everybody, how are you? I hope you're doing well. So right now we're whispering, and here's why we're whispering. Because last night when I was recording, I got some really shitty comments from some really shitty people who said that while my voice was kind of pleasant, I'm full of shit. So what I want to make sure they hear crystal clear in their ears right now is that I would love for them to go fuck themselves. All right, let's go do this thing. Ladies and gentlemen, guys, gals, non-binary pals, friends, writers, makers, doers, dreamers, hopefuls, poets, artists, dancers, shoelace enthusiasts, hanky coat enthusiasts, anybody who remembers the sheer joy of the N64, people who can appreciate a good iced tea, people who love a good root beer, anybody who's ever struggled against executive dysfunction, people who know how painful it is to step on Legos, lovers of fine snack foods, lovers of cheesesteaks, anybody who's completely and absolutely down to watch large, athletic, muscular people jump around in their underwear, anybody who's ever found sheer ticklish joy with magnets, anybody who's ever wanted and wondered and hoped and dreamed that they were ever able to do something and improve their lives, and most importantly, the comrades. This is the Writer's Chat for January I want to make sure I get the date right because I haven't gotten it right all day, January the 12th. 2022. It is the first Writer's Chat of 2022, and I am so happy to be here. How are you? How you doing? How are things? Now, I know, if you were here last night when I was talking about query letters, it's like we barely ever left. All I did was take a shower and change my shirt, but all the same, it's nice to be back here for what is probably and absolutely one of my favorite things to do this week. I love this stuff. This makes me super happy, and I love that we're back at it one more time together. You and me, back to back, old chum, deep in the trenches, doing our best to make sure that we make art happen. And if you're new to this, if you're checking this out on YouTube, or if this is your first time in the lovely Twitch chat, hello, Twitch chat, how are you? I hope things are going well. If this is the first time you're checking this out and you have no idea what's going on, I'm John Adamus. I'm the writer next door. And for over 20 years, I have done everything I can to make sure that writers are better educated, better informed, empowered, and are able to live out their publishing dreams. And tonight, I'm doing my part by answering some questions that I've collected from all across all corners of social media. And I'm very happy, very excited to bring those answers to you, as well as the answers of those people in chat. Twitch, say hi to Zoom, say hi to Twitch, and everybody say hi to YouTube in the future. We all good? Everything doing okay? Any crises, any conflicts? Now, I know we don't really deal with screenwriting Twitter so much, but I just want to point out that, hey, everybody, that screenwriting Twitter currently right now is in a very contentious state about all different kinds of things. And I hope they sort their shit out, but I want you to know right here in this space, from this wall to this door, it's good to have you here, minus some of that hoopla. I've missed you. I've been away for a few weeks. I took some time off. It was badly needed. And I'm very happy to be here doing this, because honestly, I think I might be better at doing this than I am at taking time off. Have you ever had that experience? I sit and I think about this a lot. Like, I don't know how to stop. And I'm not saying that in like a weird flex or anything, because it's a weird thing to be, like, I'm really proud of the fact that I don't know how to relax, and I don't know how to let myself off the hook, and I don't know how to not be anxious. But at the same time, I sit there wondering, like, I should be working. I should do something. I got this new office set up. I got this new equipment set up. I should do something, right? Like, aren't I literally, according to the rules of capitalism, wasting money every second that I'm not busy? These are the things I think about for 14 days since the last time we spoke. Weird. But anyway, here we are. Here's me. Here's you. I've got some questions. You probably have questions. I'm excited. Shall we get started? I think we should get started. Yeah, let's get started. Question number 1. What is transportation, and how do I improve it? Transportation, I put it in quotes because it's not really a term. It's sort of the casually used term. You'll see it on social media. You'll see it mentioned in blog posts. But it's not itself a publishing term. It doesn't show up in classes. It doesn't show up in journals. It's not used behind the scenes. But it refers to the idea that when we read a book, whatever book, hopefully it's a book we like, but whenever we read, we are transported, we are relocated imaginatively into the world of the story. And I'm not talking like in that childlike way, although it does count as transportation that way, or in that sort of loose, wobbly, boundaryless way where we're way more involved and engaged in the world of fiction than we are in the world of reality. Transportation is the ability of the effect of the text. It's the ability for that text to get you to picture it in your mind and be transported from, hey, I'm just sitting here in this chair. Hey, I'm laying in bed. Hey, I'm laying on this couch. Hey, I'm listening to the audiobook, where I'm engaged in a set of physical actions with my physical body, but imaginatively, mentally, I am picturing this world, these characters, this dialogue, these actions, this whatever. I'm picturing it in my brain, and it's sort of taking center stage away from the fact that my body physically is seated or standing or laying or lounging or this or that. Transportation is the ability of a story to engage our imagination. It is one of the, if not the most untalked about, but most critical things you can imagine. Because if your story fails to transport the reader, it's going to feel boring. It's at the best case, it's going to feel boring. At the worst case, it's going to be confusing and upsetting because we're not really sure why we're reading it. We're going to get frustrated. We're going to walk away. So improving transportation is absolutely critical. Absolutely critical. There is no doubt in my mind the best thing you can do to improve transportation is have a very clear and decisive way of expressing the world. Now, I don't mean clear and decisive like you have to write short sentences and it's got to be really stiff and all the paragraphs need to be the same size and it all needs to be sort of like locked together like little boxes. That is not at all what I'm talking about. We don't want to create homogeneous text. We don't want to create like factory widget stamps where everything is universally the same size and everything comes out one after the other. I'm not talking, that's not going to be transportive. It's your ability to paint the picture. It's your ability to use language in all its forms and punctuation in all its forms and a combination of dialogue and description and objects and movement and motion and concept so that as someone is reading, whatever it is they're reading, they're thinking about the reality you're creating. They're thinking about, oh, that character is a real person. I can picture them in my head. That character is moving in a real room. I can picture that in my head. They're doing this with their hands. They're doing that with their hands. They're going here. They're saying this, etc., etc. You improve it by having a sharper command on a per scene basis. It doesn't matter if we're talking about, well, I have an 11-book series planned. It doesn't matter if we are well-versed in our genre. It doesn't matter if you're totally doing this with this in mind and that plan, and there's this twist coming up in 2 chapters, and you really love the character. And none of that matters. It matters to you, but it's not going to matter for the purpose of improving transportation. Scene at a time. Not chapter at a time. Not act at a time. Scene at a time. Scene at a time. You want to make sure that the reader can picture the things you are talking about. If it goes on the page, whether it's dialogue, whether it's a description, whether it's an announcement, whether it's a statement, whether it's a feeling, whether it's a thought, whether it's a whatever the hell it is, you, the writer, have to ask yourself, hey, is this an issue that I'm trying to get the reader to picture something, to feel something, to think something? And no matter which of those 3 it is, and sometimes it's more than one of those 3 at a time, am I creating new information that they didn't know a sentence prior? Or am I adding information to what they already know? Sometimes both. But the better you get a handle on that, the better you understand that that is what you are doing when you produce this art, the easier it is going to be for you to transport your reader and suck them into the world and keep them reading and keep them engaged. Transportation is everything. And this is why we write multiple drafts. This is why we have beta readers. This is why we don't try to make it perfect. This is why we don't try and clone what other people are doing. This is also not why we slack when it comes to education and practice. This is why we don't accept weak criticism. This is why we look out for feedback. This is why we have a responsibility to ourselves and to our art to do the best we can so that someone else reading this can have some amount of the emotional experience we intended when we wrote it. We need transportation. You should be practicing transportation in all things at all times. Think about how or what the reader's got going on in their head when they read the thing you just wrote. One sentence at a time, one paragraph at a time, one scene at a time. And that is how we're starting tonight. Oh, man. Heck of a start. Let's go look at this. Let's go look at the second question. Question 2. What's one thing in a synopsis that I'm probably overlooking that I should really try to nail? Okay, first of all, there's loads of things in a synopsis that should be paid attention to. Hello, good evening, hi, thank you for coming. It's nice to see you all. How are you? Everybody good? Hi. Good. So the synopsis. Loads of different stuff here. Loads of different things that are all important. Not necessarily all equally important, but there's lots of moving parts in a synopsis. There's lots of things worth talking about. There's lots of things to deal with. But that does not mean that, everything needs to be, how do we put this mildly? It does not mean that everything needs to be exactly super hyper focused on, and that means some stuff's going to fall by the wayside. Sometimes it gets, things get lost in the shuffle. It's okay. But one thing that you've probably not talked about, because it's easy to nail character, plot, world, theme, one thing that's probably not coming across clearly enough in your synopsis are risks. As in the risks to the character, as in the idea of what's the character wagering, essentially. If they win, if they accomplish the thing successfully, whatever the thing is. If they win, what do they get? And if they lose, what do they lose, and how big a deal is it, and what happens if they lose? It can be something as simple as if they lose, they die. But sometimes it can be as, abstract or variable, like, well, if they lose the respect of this people, or they gain self-doubt or something. It doesn't always have to be really black and white. It doesn't always have to be really like fixatedly binary. You can have a lot of nuance here, but most importantly is the idea that you convey the risks of the story, because it's the attempts to resolve those risks, the attempt to overcome them, the attempt for the character to win, or characters to win, that keeps the reader reading. It doesn't matter what cool CG powers you're thinking the character would get if this was televised. It doesn't matter if you super-de-duper love just how clever you were when you wrote a thing. Doesn't matter. You've got to think about the reader who doesn't come to your story with all the baggage that you do. And they're looking for that experience. They're looking for that mental movie in their head, right? So one of the things that keeps them engaged, along with the descriptions and the visibility and the transportation and all those things when we sit down to imagine a story, one of the other things they're looking for is a reason to keep reading. Not because they're going to be skittish and fly away at the first sign of trouble, but because they want to know that the hero, whether they're protagonist, antagonist, anti-hero, whatever, they want to know that the character they're following is trying to do something, and they're invested in that. They want to see them do better. They want to see them accomplish their goal. And the risk gives that goal urgency. The risk matters. Without a risk, you are basically telling another human being in text form a list of actions that occurred. This person did this, this person did that, then this was said, then that was said, then they went over here, then they went over there. That's not as cohesive. That's not as imaginative. That's not as structurally sound long term. And it's not a great habit or pattern to fall into when it comes to developing a career. Make sure your synopsis makes clear the risks for your characters or character as they effort through the story. Absolutely something I don't see enough people talking about when it comes to synopsis, because the universal thing everybody says about synopses is that, oh my God, it's so hard, these suck. Yet somehow, some way, some segment of the publishing sphere has still decided they're critical, when really the function of a synopsis is to, 1, see if the writer can follow directions, 2, to see if the writer can summarize their work in a way that is different than quoting verbatim from the manuscript, and 3, it's, can the writer produce a document that can be given to publishing people who don't have the time and luxury and ability to read the whole manuscript, but they need some kind of cliff notes so they sound like they give a shit when it comes to a publishing meeting. That's why we write synopses. Any other reason people want to give is more or less a dressed up version of one of those 3 rules. Please don't sleep on the risks. Please don't overlook them. No, get down, cat. Sorry, I had a cat-based issue. On we go to question 3. John, I'm writing a young character, age 10. How can I help make this character sound age appropriate? Here's a thing. I don't know if you know this, but when you get on the internet, when you jump around social media and you start looking at people's comments or thoughts about writing age appropriate characters, it does not take very long for things to get very creepy very quickly. Even if your author is not a weird skeevy dude, can we put it that way? Does that make sense? Like, yes, very clearly, the skeevy dudes are going to really lean in on writing those young children. But it also happens in some degrees with non-skeevy dude authors. The minute you start talking about age appropriate, I don't know if it's a function of the word age, a function of the word appropriate, or a function of the phrase age appropriate, but people want to immediately detour away from how a character sounds and start talking about how they dress and whether or not they're sexualized and to what degree they're sexualized and how to sexualize them or how to clean up the sexualization, which sounds way worse when you say it out loud. The fact remains, though, that if you're writing a young character, and there's nothing wrong with writing young characters, it does not mean you're weird. It doesn't mean, you've got a candy in a van. It doesn't mean you're, like a terrible being. It just means that you're writing a young character. So how do you make them sound the age you're intending? Fun fact, there are actual literal humans on the planet that age, in theory, assuming you're writing, human children. I don't know if you're writing like people, you might have to struggle a little bit. But by and large, if you're writing human children, you can go talk to actual human children and see to what degree and in what ways these children communicate. Now, I can tell you most likely that a 10-year-old being is going to reference a lot of memes. I can talk to people children, but they're hard to find. Well, they keep swimming away, I suppose. Maybe we just need water-based candy. I'm not entirely sure. That joke made better sense in my head. I really let it get away from me. I feel like I'm in a fishbowl with this joke now. Anyway, I'm getting out of it. So you can go find a 10-year-old. Maybe not. Okay, let's phrase that differently. I don't mean find a 10-year-old like, hey, 10-year-old, come here. But I'm sure you can make inquiries as to, someone must have a kid. Someone must know children. Maybe they're a school teacher. Maybe I have to be monetized first in order to get demonetized on YouTube. I see you, Zoom chat. I got to get it doesn't matter. I'm too small right now. We're growing, but that's a different issue. But you've got to find someone who has, children in their life, a parent, a school teacher, something like that, where you can go, hey, how does your 10-year-old sound? Can I talk to them? Yes, you could volunteer at a school. You could take a job as a substitute teacher. Many school districts are desperate for that. It's not really the greatest strategy right now because, plague. But by and large, if you interact with 10-year-olds, you will figure out very quickly how 10-year-olds sound. I'm going to tell you right now, they speak in and traffic in a lot of memes. There's depending on your region and where you're at, there's some varying amount of appropriated Afro-American vernacular English. And the language tends to be hyper-accelerated and delivered in long stretches. They say a lot. They talk about stuff. They use language that is not entirely their own, but it's sort of been sponged up by them via the culture. And then, by and large, just do that. And it's going to come down to, at some point, you are probably going to end up having to ask fairly awkward questions about, hey, 10-year-old, do people use this word? How would you react to this kind of situation? What would you say if someone said XYZ to you? And pay attention. If you're trying to sound accurate, if you're trying to sound age appropriate, the best thing you can do is consult an actual source who has that experience. And this is advice for whether we're talking about 10-year-olds or whether we're talking about people with varying social experience than you. Just go talk to them. Find out exactly what memes they're talking about. What you want to do, what you want to think about, is not so much only focusing the character on delivering the content that is specific to the story, because that's how you get like the world-weary 10-year-old who delivers the plot-perfect element. What we have instead is the idea that we just want this person, because a 10-year-old is in fact a person. We want to make this person sound like a person. So go speak to them. See how they communicate. Learn the structure. Learn a little syntax. Learn some reference. Get some, take some notes, and then apply that to your manuscript. That's exactly how you do it. It can be a little embarrassing. You may find out that you are way old and way out of touch, but it's not malicious. And yeah, 10-year-olds can be infuriating. They do require some amount of patience. The same is true for 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 31-year-olds, etc. Patience and compassion still are fundamental human requirements. 10-year-olds are good for that. So just like work on that. I see you, Zoom chat. I will flag that and come back to it. I don't know. I don't know. I'll look into it. Good question, though. I think that's me setting the auto moderator a little too stringently again. I don't know. I'll tweak it. Anyway. It's probably me with a setting too high. Are there any questions from chat? Twitch, Zoom, YouTube, by the way, YouTube in the future. Hi, guys. If you have questions, leave them in the comments down below. Did I eat and drink today? From Zoom chat. Yes, I did. I had both breakfast and lunch. I'm on glass of tea number 1 of the day, but I've also had 9 glasses of water. And I have to confess a small secret. There is 1 root beer in the fridge. That's a post-chat treat. So yes, I have had water. I have eaten stuff today. It was delicious. Yes, thank you for looking after me. I hope you as well have consumed food and put water in your body. Good question. Other questions? Question from chat. I'm occasionally kicked in the skull by the idea of writing out a religious text for my novel, even if it's only occasionally quoted. Is it a bridge too far? Do you mean like you're going to write out the whole thing? Because if you're only going to occasionally quote it, just write out the occasional quotes. Remember, religious texts, if it's not going to make its way into the book, it's not going to make its way entirely into the created content you're producing, like you're not intending to later publish the religious text for the sake of your story or universe or series or whatever, that's an awful lot of work that is somewhat adjacent rather than forward progress making. It sounds like a great idea. It's very engaging, but at the same time, it's a lateral move. Yes, it would help fill in the gaps, but you had considered publishing it separately. Okay. If you're going to actually pursue that, and if you think it'll not only help the current story, but also give you more material, go for it. But if you're doing it because you're only going to need, like, I'll make a number up, 6 references to it, just write those 6 references and keep getting back into the story. You don't need to, like, chart 1,000 pages when you're only going to pull, like, 10 sentences. It's an interesting idea, I think. Don't let that idea get bigger than the need that idea is trying to serve. If you find yourself dedicating more time and space to that new thing because it's a new thing and it's pulling you away from the manuscript proper, then it has become or will become or is in the middle of becoming a bridge too far. Great question. Others? Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much for asking it. Twitch, we good on questions? Else we will move on. All right. We're going to move. Nope. Back to this. There we go. Question 4. This one isn't my question. I mean, it is. Somebody sent it to me, but somebody else answered it elsewhere on, I think it was Twitter. And then I asked, hey, can I also answer this? And they were like, yeah, totally. So I'm essentially borrowing this question from somebody. Is there a difference between appropriation and recognition when I'm writing whatever it is I'm writing? Yeah, absolutely there is. Appropriation is when you take a thing, a phrase, a concept, an idea, and I'm not talking like plagiarism. I mean like vernacular jargon slang experience, quality, something like that. And you try and pass it off as your own, and you try to pass off along with it that you, in your experience, how you are, being who you are with whatever you have going on, that other experience, that other concept is native and innate to you, that you totally get it. What that's going to do is completely disregard any privilege you have or any difference you have. And that can be a real wrinkle. That can be a real problem. Appropriation, not good. Because what it ends up doing is sort of centering you, decentering or uncentering the other person, and completely sort of dominating a narrative that might not intend, or it might not be intended for you, or might not be yours, or it might be outside your normal range of things, your scope, which can lead to all kinds of problems like caricature and misappropriation and misunderstanding, because you think that's how this goes, but because it's not your native experience, it doesn't mesh. Recognition is the idea that you are able to make a distinction between who you are, what you're writing, how you experience the world, and the way that people different from you, whether they're different by identity, gender, social structure, class, for whatever reason, race, ethnicity, anything like that. You're able to recognize that you are however you are, and they, whomever they might be, are as they are. And while you might have some overlap in your two Venn diagrams, there are going to be things for each of you that are different for any number of reasons. And you're able to say, well, we overlap in these areas, but we do not overlap in those areas. And you are able to use the language and use your creativity and use your art to make sure that in the areas you overlap, you're able to communicate compassionately and emotionally in a way that makes other people who also have overlap with their Venn diagrams, but also distinct parts that don't, you're able to build a bridge between you and the reader, and recognize that, hey, this is my space, and that's their space. And you're able to recognize that you don't have this experience native to you, but you are able to, thanks to the research you've done, thanks to the approach you've taken, thanks to the positive representation, and thanks to the lack of appropriation, you're able to put words to it so that someone else who might also not have the same experience can somewhat, to some degree, gain a bit of a foothold. You don't have to become a subject expert. You don't have to try and, do untold amounts of labor about it, but you do have, I believe, some amount of a slight responsibility that if you're going to recognize things and highlight them, that you should do it in a way so that other people who have maybe not considered it will then consider it. I'll give you an example. So right now on the internet, there's this thing called Wordle, which is essentially a giant game like Mastermind. You've got, as I understand it, it's a 6-letter word, or it's some amount of letters in a word you have to guess. You have a certain number of tries, and then you get it. And it's the graphic for it is posted in colored squares, which you can easily duplicate in social media with, I imagine, emoji. I'm not entirely sure. What I do know is that when you post it yourself, as opposed to, saving an image and cropping it and attaching that to your Twitter post, you are absolutely fucking up the day of someone who uses a screen reader to process tweets. Because instead of seeing the visual representation of green boxes, yellow boxes, and I think it's black or gray boxes, they get text in their ear describing green box, yellow box. And that's, one, incredibly jarring, especially when a bajillion number, an untold number of people are doing it all at once. And it doesn't actually help give them some idea of what to go through. It's weird and frustrating and off-putting and upsetting. While this isn't technically appropriation, because you are not stealing the Wordle experience from anyone, the recognition here is the important part. Recognize that your experience with whatever you're doing and however you're communicating with the world is different than how someone else does it. And you're able to put words to each to some degree based on the amount of compassion you have between you. This is how we develop healthier communication. And, by extension, healthier art. The difference between the two things, appropriation and recognition, compassion. Sort of a metaphysical, philosophical question. I'm quite pleased with it. It's a good one. On to question 5. It's been about 2 weeks. I should have grabbed the Bare Naked Ladies. I realize that now, but I really don't want to get a copyright strike. So just take 2 seconds and hum the beginning of that song to you. It's been about 2 weeks since the start of the new year. How can I stick to my resolution for the rest of the month? If you're questioning it, you're not going to do it. I don't know how else to say that to you, but you're not going to do it. I don't like resolutions. I think they're invitations to kind of perform giving up or perform sticking to it, because there's too much of a circus around developing them. If you're having trouble sticking with a habit that you started 2 weeks ago, instead of identifying it as a resolution and making it into this extra thing, just look at the goal you're trying to accomplish. Was it, get up every day at 10 minutes earlier and write? Was it try to write on your lunch breaks? Was it try to, finish this book by the end of the calendar year? I don't know. Whatever it was, whatever your goal is, think about your goal. Sorry, I was distracted by a very excellent point in Zoom chat, which is I found for many years giving my years a theme to be helpful. For example, this is the year of organization. Yes, thematic organization can help tie things together and make things slightly less daunting by keeping things on track. So, in the year of organization, perhaps you have a set of habits you're looking forward to employing about being organized. And if you have a set of habits about this is the year where I finish my book, rather than leave it sort of big and nebulous and scary and unclear, focus down on something smaller. Okay, this is the year where I finish my book. There are 12 months in this year. How can I divide my remaining work that I have left to do into 12ths? Maybe that's still too big. Okay, so there are 52 weeks. What do I need to accomplish each week to make progress in this? Break it down. Break anything down into smaller and actionable parts that have some amount of actual accomplishment, stuff that's easy for you to do so that you can build on top of those successes, but also elements in it that push you just slightly out of that comfort zone, that require a bit of effort, that require a bit of focus. Because what you need to do in the process of developing new habits is push yourself. Give it a try. If you were looking to build muscle, you will eventually have to add weight to the amount of weight you move. If you were looking to change your amount of calories consumed, either up or down, you need to change the amount of calories by either increasing it or decreasing it. If you want to make sure you drink more water, you have to put more water into your body, which means there needs to be more water available to you. You need to do things that are both accomplishable, but also in some areas a challenge to you, because that's how you develop the willpower and the discipline to keep moving. So how can you stick to this resolution? Simplify it down into a more straightforward, concrete set of goals, or even a single goal if it is. And then figure out the progress you can make on a measurable, less nebulous schedule. And then break it into pieces so that you can very easily, without having to get a calendar or a day planner or use one of the 57,000 journals you keep in a box, where you can just know that, okay, I'm having this much water. I'm doing this. I'm writing this. Here's my to-do list for tomorrow. Here's the Post-it note where I wrote my plan. Hey, I've got to write that fight scene. Whatever it might be. Break it into parts that you can both accomplish and other parts where you can be challenged. And you will build that better habit. You will develop the discipline you need. You will make an effort so long as you put the work in. Because it's not going to do it spontaneously, magically. There's no resolution fairy that shows up to do the work for you. Great question. Love that question. Oh no, where's my harp? Gentle advice. The first gentle advice of 2022. Gentle advice. I thought my imposter syndrome was gone. Now it's back. Do you have any words of advice? Okay, first, hang on. We're going to move the microphone a little bit. Hi. Can you hear me? Hi. First, I need you to know that when I was rehearsing for this question earlier today, there was one version of this where I did unfortunately do a mocking Skeletor laugh. Because I have been in this exact same position. I have sat there and not believed I was good enough. It happens to me on like a daily basis. Sometimes an hourly basis, depending on the day I'm having. I've been where you've been, and sometimes my advice is just, fuck it, what are you going to do? And other times my advice is dynamic and motivating. So it's sort of a roll of the dice to see what we get today. Imposter syndrome, I don't think, ever totally disappears. I don't think it just walks away. I think it's a matter of shrinking it down and recognizing that you are greater than it. And I think that process, I think that effort takes time. I don't know how much time. That's going to be different for everybody, I think. And I think there's loads of different factors between it. Whether it's a synthesis of activity and stress level and focus and intention, or whether there's a load more things that I can't think of off the top of my head. But I don't think imposter syndrome disappears. I don't think it magically goes away. I think it's a thing that, much like a chronic condition, some days it flares more than others. And I almost, to some degree, want to tell you that you have to make peace with it so much. Because there are going to be days where it's hard. There's going to be days where the art seems like it's a billion miles away. There's going to be days that seem like you wish from the jump things had been different. Because if they had been different, you'd be doing different things. And while those feelings can be messy and tangled up, those feelings are also kind of wasteful. Because the more you sit, just like I sit, the more you and we both sit there and go, God, I wish things were different. What we're doing is spending the time thinking about how things aren't. And we're reinforcing those ideas that, well, things should be, could be, would be, need to be different, but I'm me, and this is how it is, so it's not different. We're just finding new and more elaborate ways to convince ourselves that we're still not good enough. What you need, how we manage this, is in support. You need support. And there's two big kinds of support that you should track down. One, you need support from others. Other people who go through the exact same thing. Other people who go through it more. Other people who go through it less. You need to know that all those other people who you think belong somewhere or who can do something better, and you're the one who sticks out. You need to know that you are not alone, that everybody's thinking that. Now, that doesn't make your feeling go away, and it doesn't make your feeling invalid, but it does mean that we're all thinking this, and none of us believe each other when we say that, you're not alone in this. But I have to tell you that because you need to get it into your head. We all think this. We all think we're the one who's going to be found out to some degree over something for some reason sometime. And if you have the support of other people who promise not to reveal your secret, if you promise not to reveal the secret, that they're the one who's going to get called out and spotted. As long as we're all promising to keep each other's secrets, we can work together through whatever rises and falls of doubt and weakness and fear and panic and frustration and anger we may have. That's the first kind of support to have. You need, if I may use for my friend Jeff a wrestling metaphor, you need your own dark order. But that's not the only kind of support that's helpful in this case, because there's one other kind of support, and I am perhaps not the person to be saying this, because if you knew that, like, I spend between 9 and 12 hours a week in therapy, and if you knew how hard I worked to be at the 6 times below the poverty line level of work I do, where I'm struggling to pay bills and keep the lights on, if you knew how hard it was, and you knew how hard I was on myself, maybe this would ring a little hollow. But I've always found it more important to be honest than to be magically saccharine. Because the other kind of support you need to do is support yourself. And it can be really hard to support yourself. It can be really, really hard to be a cheerleader for yourself when you constantly look at other people who seem to be miles ahead of you in a race that started hours before you even knew it existed. It is very, very difficult to believe in yourself and big yourself up and tell yourself you're good enough when you are doing your damnedest just to survive. We haven't even imagined thriving yet. But you have to be able to support yourself. And I'm not talking like economically. I'm not talking in a classist way. I mean a straight up, you in the mirror, you have to know that you are worth believing in, because you won't give up on yourself. There's a difference if the rest of the world wants to push against you, if things are stacked against you. There's a difference, though, between that and you giving up on yourself. Side note, if you're thinking of giving up on yourself, please remember that I believe in you. Even if you don't believe in me, I believe in you. So when you despair and when you think, oh my God, no one's got my back, I have your back. Because I want you to succeed. Somehow, some way, crawl inch by inch, fingernail by fingernail, but I want you to succeed. But you need to learn, just like I need to learn. At, $75 a pop, 12 hours a week. You got to support yourself. You got to believe in yourself. You get to be good to you. It's very hard. It feels very foreign. It's very uncomfortable sometimes. But just like when we had the support of others to keep our secret, instead of keeping secrets, you're going to trust those to other people. You're going to keep the truth to yourself. I'm accomplishing things. It's not great. It's not glamorous. It's not the big, giant high life I always daydreamed about. But I get through the day. I eat. I had some water, took my meds, put on clean clothes, did what I had to do. Maybe you struggle with those things. Maybe you get that far, but there's a little bit more. Maybe you do less. Did you do something? You still alive? You still breathing? Then that's where you're at, and that's okay. You, whomever you might be, wherever you are, however you are, doing whatever it is you want to do, planning on doing whatever you're doing, thinking, worrying, feeling about whatever it is you're going to be thinking, worrying, and feeling about. The best thing you can do is understand that I'll keep your secret, and I won't tell anybody that you feel like you don't belong. And if you're willing to do that for me, we'll go one step further, and I'll tell you that I think you're good enough to give it a shot tomorrow, too. Can we do that for each other? Is that a fair promise? That's the best advice I got for you right now. It's been a day. Capital A, capital D, a day. But that's the best I got for you right now. Ask me again next week. Ask me tomorrow. Ask me in the morning. Ask me 2 hours from now. Maybe you'll get a different answer. But right now, that's the best I got. Cool? Cool. Any questions from chat? Are those new people I see in chat? Hello, new people. How are you? I'm reasonably certain some of you are new. It's nice to see you. Hi, new people. I don't want to put you on the spot. You're under no obligation to do anything other than just, keep hanging out. But hi, I see you. It's nice to see you. Thanks for coming. I hope you're well. If you do have questions, if anybody has questions, feel free to fire them away in the chat. People are over in the Zoom as well doing it, so feel free. It's okay. There are no stupid questions. Doesn't matter if you're brand new. Doesn't matter if you've been doing this for 50 years. You can ask whatever question you want. I do want to mention one thing. Last night I had talked about I moved all the office stuff around. And it left me with one of the major problems I had in my old setup was that I used to tap. I'm a fidgeter. I'm a bad fidgeter. And at least with the old setup, there was a big foam cushion underneath the microphone that kind of absorbed some of my tapping. And when I reorganized everything, I got rid of the foam cushion. And then my tapping was pretty bad. So I started fidgeting with, I got to find it, where is it? With cat toys, which I can't seem to find right now because the cat's playing with it. But I used to be a terrible fidgeter, and it was making a lot of terrible clicking, clacking, and dinging noises. And so what I've done tonight, I've grabbed the cord from an old pair of headphones I don't have, and I've been quietly fiddling with it way out of mic range, like way down here underneath the table. It's been incredibly helpful because, well, I get nervous and I fidget, and here we are. But I wanted to point out last night that I listened back to it this morning when I was double-checking everything. I do a fair amount of fidgeting. It is something I'm going to try and work on. I apologize. I'm hoping tonight's a little bit easier. But I had said last night that you're going to hear fidgeting, and sometimes you are. And other times, like tonight, I'm going to be pretty passive with my, hey, here's a squishy cord thing. So excuse the erratic, stuff, and we'll all get through it together. Somebody asked me, do I have a graphic for questions from my phone? I should make one for my phone. I'll do that for next week. But someone sent me a text this morning. Hey, John, how's the stuff with the camera coming? Because apparently that's a big deal on Twitch, and it would radically help improve everything. I'm working on it. It's going okay. If you're a member of the Patreon, the thing we're doing Friday, I might actually be on camera for that. We're gonna give it a try Friday. That's sort of the test flight. So, yeah, let's not remind me of that because I don't want to freak out about it any more than I already am. But just we're doing okay. The other benefit here that I don't think I mentioned last night, new mic setup. I can now totally move anywhere in the office, and the microphone sounds always like this. I'm really pleased of how well I've got this stuff insulated and got this stuff organized. It's a big deal for me. I just like talking about it. It makes me happy. Okay. Shall we get back to work? Let's get back to work. Nope. That one. Question 7. What kind of twist can I use in a fantasy novel? Okay. First of all, you can use whatever kind of twist you want in whatever kind of novel. Twists aren't restricted by genre. It's not like fantasy novels can only use one kind of twist, and romance stories can only use another kind of twist. You can use whatever kind of twist you want in whatever kind of novel you're writing. And if you're wondering, John, are there more than one kind of twist? Yes. There are plot twists. There are character development twists. There are character arc twists. So a plot twist is really easy, right? A plot twist is, hey, no, that's secretly your evil twin. Plot twist. But there's also a character arc twist where, you get the double cross, the betrayal from a secondary character. That's a character arc twist. A character development twist is more about your protagonist, where, let's say you've been telling the story of, I don't know, a career gambler who spends the entire or the majority of the story, we're following along in their footsteps, and they're doing their best to go straight and clean and not gamble so much. But at the critical moment of the story where we're rooting for them to succeed, we find out that they didn't. And it ends in a downer. There was recently a noir released by Del Toro that employed a character development twist, because it's not exactly the same kind of hard twist that a plot twist is. It's more of at least for character development twist, it's more about a sad looping back around to see how the main character has changed. It's sort of the realization of not necessarily outright negative position, but certainly an unfortunate set of circumstances that befalls them. You don't really see those much anymore. They're old-fashioned and not out of date, but they're old-fashioned for a reason. They're difficult to pull off, but they're not limited by genre. Most of the time you're going to see plot twists. They're the easiest to do because you just throw a monkey wrench in the plan. Or you're going to see, character arc twists because you're going to double cross people or reveal mind control or something. Those things aren't limited by genre either. And it's okay if you're using a plot twist. Like, you understand, right? Like, it doesn't, it's not bad or cheap or tacky or sloppy or I don't know, weak in some way to use a twist. If you're using a twist and you can execute it properly, it's fine. So you can use whatever kind of twist you want in your fantasy novel. Good luck with it. I hope it gets you the impact you desire. Whatever twist you want. Question 8. Is it better to outline chapter by chapter or plot point to plot point? Can we all guess what the word I'm going to flag here is? Better. Because this sort of thing pops up in two contexts. One, it pops up in this idea of, like, compared to other people, I want to do this right. I'm making air quotes. Okay. That's not a thing that exists. However you outline, so long as it works for you, that's the best way for you to outline. Don't compare your story development process, your drafting process, your outlining process, your research process, your beta reader feedback process, your editing process, your revising process, your marketing process. Insert, fill in the blank, whatever process you want. Don't compare that to what somebody else is doing. They're working on a completely different story. They're different people with different experiences, different skills, different opportunities, different fears, different failings, different activities. Two totally different things. You can't compare them. It's apples to pine cones. Yes, they both exist in and around trees, but they're not the same thing. So if it works for you, great. Don't sweat other people. Now, here's the second context this shows up in. Better in terms of effectiveness. I'm sometimes tempted to replace that with ease, which is easier. But there are times where they're about the same amount of easy, which is to say not very easy at all, or they are in fact very easy. So you can't really measure this in terms of difficulty, but you can measure it in terms of effectiveness. And again, this comes down to being a personal choice. Because it doesn't matter if your outline is uniform all the way through. I'm not sure we've ever talked about that specific point. I know when we've talked about outlining, say on a Monday night stream or something, we've talked about it in terms of like, it doesn't matter how you outline, just please outline. But if you need to switch types of outlines over the course of the story for whatever reason, let's say you want to outline the opening chapter very, very concretely, Roman numerals, capital letters, like really, really stiff it out, really, really structure it. Go ahead. But then if you want to jump to like chapters 3, 4, and 5, which are a little less certain in your head, and you want to do them as a bulleted list, that's totally fine. And then jump back to chapter 6 where you have a concrete idea. You can do whatever you want. Your outline does not have to be standardized across the whole thing. The issue is, have you outlined it at all? So if it works for you to outline chapter by chapter so that you can move from one thing to the next in a very structured way, because chapters are inherently more structured than just plot point to plot point, then do chapter by chapter. Maybe you just do one chapter and then you do bullet points. Maybe you just do bullet points and then you start outlining it. It's what makes it easy for you to make the transition from I have this idea and I have more or less this blueprint to I'm going to put words on the page. Whatever it is that moves from I'm going to think about things and have a rough blueprint to I'm going to put words on the page is an absolutely best for you, best for the moment thing and way and style to outline. Some people, sometimes, in some drafts, at some points, find it helpful to outline chapter by chapter, all the way through. Some people just do some chapters and then bullet point the rest. Some people do plot point to plot point until they need to get to a tricky chapter, and they sit down and they map the hell out of that tricky chapter. It doesn't matter ultimately, because the end goal, the words on the page, are the vastly more important thing. It doesn't really matter how you got there, because the reader isn't going to see your outline. And even if they do, they don't have to understand the outline because they have the book, they have the manuscript in hand. Don't worry about it. Just outline it in whatever way facilitates you transforming it from loose idea to words on the page. That's the best outlining structure to use. Good question. Thank you for asking it. Thanks for letting me kind of explain that your outline doesn't have to be uniform. I'm really surprised. I have to sit here. I'm really surprised that it hasn't come up before. But you just do whatever you can to get the words on the page. Good question. All right. Now, I have to tell you that I have something like kind of special now. So if you'll excuse me, I have to move over here and we are going to try an ASMR rant. Now here's why I'm doing this. So I recorded last night, and I put it up on YouTube, and I got some feedback that was pretty heinous, like real shitty stuff. Really like mean stuff, and I don't understand the benefit in being mean to a guy who has like less than 25 views, but whatever. So people got real mad because I pointed out some pretty straightforward stuff, and I just asked some questions, and apparently asking questions is like the worst thing to do on the internet. So I asked some questions and I did some stuff, and people got real angry, but everybody had, even the most mean people who were like, you know, you're awful, quit doing this, you suck, etc. Everybody had really nice things to say about my voice, except one person who thought that this voice coming out of my face into that microphone undergoes an obscene amount of processing to sound as good as it does. Now, I'm quite proud of my voice. I enjoy talking into this microphone. I enjoy being goofy with this microphone. So I think I should answer this question about me and my process and me and my life in the most intimate way possible. So prepare for an ASMR rant. Hi. Here's the question. What have your failures taught you about your writing process? They've taught me plenty, primarily because the majority of my failures are self-induced. I have a terrible habit of sabotaging all my own shit because I feel I don't deserve success, because I feel like I'm not good enough. So I often build things up to be very successful and then tank them horrifically once they start going my way because I'm genuinely afraid of doing well, because I worry that's going to change who I am as a person. And when you combine that with a lifetime of abuse and trauma and compound it all together into like a mushy paste, I am often left with my failures being my most defining traits. So when it comes to my writing, when it comes to my producing, whether we're talking about audio into this microphone, or whether we're talking about blogging or newsletters, or all the 10 million things I start and then partially do and then give up on just when they're starting to get good, it's because I really fear succeeding more than I fear failing. I learned unhealthfully and unsuccessfully and unpositively that I am used to failing, and in some ways I deserve failing. I never have so far in 43 years learned that I should accept and want and pursue success. I'm trying to do that in 2022. And if you think my voice is processed, and if you think my feedback about agents/pimps is annoying, and if you think I'm a detriment and, in your words, a cancer to the hashtag writing community, please go fuck yourself. Question 10. What's the best Wait, no, sorry. It was an odd number question. I apologize, everyone. I was off on a tear. Are there any questions from chat? Zoom? Twitch? YouTube in the future? Text messages? WhatsApp? Twitter DMs? What the hell? I mean, how else can people reach me? Instagram? That can be a thing. Random emails, etc. I guess you could leave feedback on iTunes. I don't know. And whatever. Anybody have any questions? Okay. Thank you for appreciating my ASMR rant. I was quite pleased about it, and it was actually sincere at all parts. We need an ASMR section of questions like gentle. Yeah, I should start something with ASMR now, because now I can get all up on here on the microphone and tell you good things. I don't know. Maybe we'll do like ASMR positivity. The problem with doing ASMR is that for me, like my want in this is to start off like either legit serious, you look really good today, or like, because I'm a weird, horny man, I will turn it into something like, you look really good today. And, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. You don't know why someone would question the fact that I mean, people, I don't know, I think the question was primarily on the fact that I told them that an agent here's the gist of it. If you haven't watched yesterday's video, it's up on YouTube. Everything you need to know about query letters. But here's the gist. Here's the thing that pissed people off. Just so we're clear, just so we can piss off more people. An agent didn't write your book, but they will take the labor you did and then make a few phone calls and write a few emails and then take a percentage of the money you're owed for your labor. You're doing all the hard work. You're taking on all the risk. They're just trying to facilitate you having the opportunity to take on that risk. And in exchange for comparatively less work, they're taking a percentage of the stuff you're owed for the work you did. How is that not a pimp? I said that. I said it in more words, and I believe I said it slightly louder, but that was the thing that really pissed people off. And there were a couple people. If you're ever in the Discord, there is a section where I grab the most like jarring, painful, holy shit, I can't believe somebody said this to me on the internet comments, and I write them down because they make me laugh. I have received so many of them that at this point it's just absurd. So this one person thought my voice was processed and fake. This person also thought I was a Satanist that I had Satan-loving liberal friends. Apparently she missed the part where I mentioned comrades, but whatever. But yeah, they decided that the two things I could do was that I didn't understand publishing and that my voice must be fake. So voice isn't fake. Pretty sure I understand publishing. Yeah, but I'm seriously actively now considering like a nice ASMR thing. I will probably think about that out loud on the Discord. That'll be nice. That'll be real nice. That makes me happy. So that sounds good. The best kind of friends and comrades? Actually, yeah. I have some great comrades who have said very nice things about my voice. So, hello, how are you? This part of it is just for you. I think you are really nice. Yeah, we can totally do ASMR. That's a really good point. All right, cemented, done, check. Here, have air horns. Yeah, that's going to be a thing now. Prepare for that launch next week. All right. Shall we go answer some other questions, though? Shall we get back to work? I think we should get back to work, for we have lollygagged enough. That's a word I don't use nearly enough. All right, here we go. Question 10. What's the best organizational tool I could buy this week and use to make a difference in my workflow? That's easy. I love easy questions. Oh, good. Here you go. The best thing you can buy right now, graph paper. You know, little like quadrille paper with little squares on it. It's the best thing you could buy. Why is it the best thing you could buy? You might be asking. I'm so glad you asked. Here, let me tell you why. Because graph paper can be used in a lot of ways. One, it has lines on it. You can write on it. Two, it has little squares that you can color in to track progress. It has little even measurements because all those squares are the same size. So if you needed to draw, say, a map of the starship in your fantasy novel, you could sketch out a quick map so you could understand the logistics of the room you're describing. It's also excellent doodle space. It's got little squares and little, lines of the same size so that you could, if you wanted to, create some kind of outline with it. Also, graph paper steno pads and graph paper legal pads and graph paper notepads look awesome. But if you employ these tools and not keep them constrained or limited to just, well, this is another piece of paper I can write on, but you start to think about how else you can incorporate their shape, their texture, their style, their lines, their dimensions, etc., it will make a substantial difference in your workflow. Here's an example. Let's suppose you want to track progress. You want to track word count, and you want to do so in a quick and effective way. So maybe you decide that you want to color in boxes. Did it crash? Oh, no. I can't. Damn Zoom. Sorry. Apologies. It'll be back in a second. We're still recording. So I'm just going to keep going. Man, that sucks. I hate when that happens. I'll stitch it together and fix it in post. Anyway, maybe Zoom won't come back. Maybe it's just us, Twitch. Maybe it's just us now. Anyway. So, graph paper. You want to track your word count. Maybe, just maybe, you want to indicate every one box is 200 words, 100 words. So, every time you write 100 words, you fill in a little box, and all of a sudden you have a very visual indicator as to exactly how many. Oh no, now OBS is crashing. It seems to be okay. Maybe, possibly, kind of, sort of. Oh no. Oh shit. I don't know if I'm recording. Apologies. We're going to hold music. We're back. I think we're back. We're not back? Maybe we're back? Maybe we're back? I don't know. It's being weird. I really need to run that cable from the back of this machine to that router more effectively. Oh, man. Are we back? I think we're back. I apologize. I'm terribly sorry. This thing gets wonky sometimes. Let me just do one thing. Man, that's really frustrating. I sincerely apologize. Nope, still going. Okay. Weird. Sorry, my apologies. I gotta fix the internet in this room. That's the next thing on the list. We'll get there. I thought I had fixed it. Apparently not. Anyway, here we go. Organizational tool, graph paper. You can turn it into loads of different visual things. You can use it in loads of different ways. And you can think about it as more than just one more piece of paper to write on. Yeah, it's my internet connection. It's being wonky. Hang on a minute while I see if that works. Yeah. I'll work on that tomorrow, fixing up the internet connection. Anyway, good 10th question. Question 11. Do I need to tell the people on my newsletter that I'm raising the price of my books by $1? And the answer is yes. Yes, you do. Because maybe people are budgeting for them. Maybe people want to spend $1. Maybe they need to know that if they want to buy it at the old price, they got to move on it quickly because you're going to raise the price. Yes, you do need to tell people that you're raising the price of your books. Now, that's when you're doing the raising. When things out of your control, like a river-named big giant megacorp, adjusts the price or puts it on sale and it's out of your hands, that's not something you can account for. And you have to use social media sort of on the fly to say, hey, apparently it's on sale today. But when it's under your control and it's your decision, yes, you do need to tell them that you have decided to raise your price for whatever reason. Yes, you do. Good question. As my chat room freaks out. Really super frustrating. I'm sorry. I think it's going to come down to me drilling a hole in the wall and then running a cord. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Okay. Here we go. Question 12. Where's my harp? There's my harp. Gentle advice. I finished my book, I think. I love the I think. I think that might be my favorite part of this question. I finished my book, I think. Can you walk me through the next self-publishing steps so that I'm not freaked out? Yes. Here we go. First of all, we need to make sure you've actually finished it. You said, I think, so we just need to we just need to double check. We just need to be sure that you have, in fact, finished it. So, step 1, let's make sure you finished it. Read it. to the best of your knowledge, as is, when you read it. Did you cover all the bells and whistles? Did you say all the things you wanted to say? Did you do all the things you wanted to do? Then it's done. The next thing I want you to do is I want you to pick a number between 2 and 8. Any number between 2 and 8. Okay? It's got to be a nice round number, no fractions, no percentages. 2 and 8. Pick a number. That number that you just picked, that's the number of days away from your book you're about to spend. Just put it down, leave it on the file, leave it printed out, leave it on the notepads, wherever it is, leave it alone, walk away from it for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, however many days you picked. Okay? Then, what I want you to do is I want you to start looking for, because you're self-publishing, so here are the next steps. I want you to start looking for 2 different things. I need you to start looking for an editor, and I need you to start looking for a cover artist. And both of these things are going to take some time. Now, when I say go look for an editor and go look for a cover artist, you're going to need to do some homework first before you can even begin to look for them. And that homework you're going to need to do is to figure out your budget. Because the next few steps in this process are going to require you to pay some people to do some things so that you don't have to do it yourself. It's sort of like we can hire the plumber to fix the sink, or you can take a stab at it. Which do you think would be more successful? So you need to figure out your budget, which means maybe you've got to spend some time saving up for it. And if you do, then guess what? You can start writing the next thing while you're accruing the money. Or if it's, you've got a little bit of money set aside because you've got, more financial flexibility than someone else, and you're able to work out a deal or a payment plan, because those are things people offer, then you can transition. Once you've got the money sort of figured out, you can transition to looking for an editor. We're all over social media. You can always ask me. I've got openings in my schedule, and if it's not me and we're not a good fit, I can always recommend to you a ton of other people who would be happy to take a look at whatever it is you're doing. And you want to, I'm going to use the phrase shop around, but that doesn't mean like you play with them. There's a really bad trait. There's a really bad habit that crops up in some circles where like a writer, under the guise of wanting to be thorough or wanting to be good, says, well, I've got a few sample pages. Could you do a sample page or 2 for me to see how you edit? And that's a real divisive element, because it's sort of like getting free work done. And it doesn't really account for whether or not you and the other person will mesh. Because the best way to figure out if you and the editor or you and the cover person will mesh is to actually communicate with them outside of your book. To like talk to them and see if they're a person that you can, be comfortable talking to. The actual critique they're giving, the feedback they're leaving, that's not something you really need to vibe with. That's just their job. Again, if we're going to use the plumber analogy, this is sort of like saying, can you just come over, Mr. Plumber or Miss Plumber, and bang around with a wrench? I want to see if how you turn the wrench is something I'm okay with. That's essentially what you're saying when you're asking for a free sample. It's weird, but people seem to keep doing it, probably because there are grifters who say it's a great thing to do, because the other part of the grift here is, let's say you talk to 4 editors, and you offer each of them a 5-page sample. Well, when they all give you that feedback back, they all give you their pieces back, you just got 20 pages edited for free. This is a thing that happens. It's happened to me a number of times. It sucks. So you're going to need to build a relationship with an editor. You're going to need to talk to some people. You're going to need to work out how much it's going to cost. You're going to need to work out how much you're going to pay. And then you're going to need to make arrangements for how to get this process started, what kind of timeline it's going to take, when, all that stuff. It's a contract. It's pretty straightforward. You can advocate. You can you can work your way through it. It's pretty easy. It's a little intimidating, but it's pretty straightforward, and almost everybody I've ever referred to others or myself, I'm happy to walk you through it. It's no problem. While that's happening, and it feels kind of like you're sitting on your hands, go look for a cover artist. Again, you're going to need to figure out how to pay them and how much it's going to cost. This is going to be a lot of back and forth emailing. Hi, are you an artist? Do you do covers? Here's what I'm looking for. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Just what are your rates? Figure out the money first. Take that stressor off the table. Now, it's going to come down to you needing to know what you want your cover to be. A person, a tree, some colors, a planet. Like what pictures do you have in your head? To what degree of detail do you have them? I'm not saying you need to be hyper specific and inflexible. That's not what I'm talking about. Please don't be inflexible. Art, just like writing, art is pretty variable. But the best thing you can do is have a clear idea of what I want. I need a person in this part of the page. I need a moon over here. I need a boat. I need a duck. I need a bush, whatever it is. And be able to sketch it out. Not necessarily in high art detail, but I mean like develop it. Write it out if you have to. Write some notes, some bullet points. Draw a stick figure sketch. Give them something. You want to provide and equip that artist for success, just like you wanted to provide and equip that editor for success by giving them your manuscript. Here, when dealing with an artist, you want to give them as much latitude to do what they do, because they're the artist and you're not, but also give them a kind of idea of what you're looking for, because there's nothing more frustrating to an artist than just being told, hey, draw a thing, and I'll let you know if it's right. Because that's vague, because you might want a guy, a planet, a bush, and a duck, and I might draw you, a sandwich. And then all we're doing is we could have corrected this with an email. We could have straightened this out. So have a clear idea of what you want it to be. And work with that artist back and forth through emails, through shared things, to kind of align your cover with what it needs to be. Okay? By then, or on more or less the same timeline, you'll have your editing done, you'll have your cover together. The next thing you need to do, if you're going to self-publish, is you're going to need to start compiling some marketing stuff. Maybe that's a newsletter. Maybe that's some Twitter followers. Maybe that's both of those things. Maybe it's a website or a blog. Start these things. You can technically start them while the editing is happening and you're sort of feeling like you're sitting on your hands. But you're going to need to develop something. You don't want to go into this totally cold and totally at a standstill. So instead, do it in pieces. A little bit at a time, pretty regularly. Okay? The next thing to do after that, we build a little marketing. You need to write the back blurb. If you don't know how to do it, come back and ask me in a chat, or book an hour with me and I'll walk you through the entire process. I think in one of the How Do I Write This videos, I detailed it to some degree, but there are some resources out there in terms of how you can do it. Give it a try. Seek a professional later on once you've done it a few times to kind of hammer out the specifics and go from there. But you're going to need a back blurb, some marketing text, some sales copy. It's all the same idea. You're going to need some people to market to. You're going to need that finished, polished manuscript in its best shape. And you're going to need that book cover. Now, when it comes back, we're going to back up a minute to the editing. I don't know what draft you just gave the editor. Maybe it was your second, maybe it was your third, maybe it was your fourth, who knows. But you're going to need to hash out with them as to how publication ready it is. Do you need to go back through it and rewrite things? Do you need to polish a few things and you're good to go? It depends on your manuscript. Depends on what you asked your editor to do. You need to finalize that. When all is said and done, you should have a finished, polished manuscript, a book cover, some marketing text, and some people to market it to. 1, 2, 3, 4 things, okay? Then you're going to need to sell this book. Maybe you do that on your own website by turning it into a PDF. Maybe you use a river-themed mega corporation. Maybe you use a fruit theme to make a corporation. Maybe you do something else with it. Who knows? But whatever avenue of publication you go to, however you get that book into the hands of other people, that is like 10 steps removed, 10 steps down the road from that starting point of pick a number between 2 and 8, and that's the number of days off. You don't need to race to the end. I know it's exciting. I know it's compelling, but all the same, you don't need to rush there, okay? Those are the next steps. You're under no obligation to get them done in 10 days, 30 days, a month, 2 months, a year. It can take as long as you need it to take. And you can ask for help from experts at any and every spot you want. You want to get help from your editor? Great. You want to get help working post-editor on making the book better? Go talk to a writing coach. You want to confer with your artist and really nail down what it is you're talking about? You can do that. You want to go talk to somebody about writing better sales copy? Go talk to a writing coach. You want to work with a marketer? Again, writing coach, creative coach, marketing coach. You want to build that newsletter and develop some things? Yeah, you can totally do that. Every step of the way from this point forward, you are not alone. You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to do it all by yourself. There's help at literally every step along the way. Actual help, good help, productive help, useful help that won't bullshit you. Okay? If you finished your book, congratulations. That's incredible. I hope you use your between 2 and 8 days off to relax, to celebrate, to feel good about this thing, because the next steps are just as, or potentially just as intense as that writing process was. It won't take nearly as long to make some of these decisions, but it's like going back to work after a break. One step at a time, just get through it and go to the next one. One step at a time, get through it, go to the next one. Ask for help whenever you need it. Okay? Great question. Thanks so much for it. And that despite all the technical hiccups, despite all the everything, is everything I got this week. Are there any questions in chat? Zoom, I'm sorry you crashed. I'm sorry my internet has been wonky and unstable. I will figure out why. It's on my list of things to do. I apologize for the strange hiccup in the podcast feed for this. We're working it out as we go. Any questions, anybody? All right. Does not appear to be. So, that said, how about we go to the outro? What happened to my outro button? Hang on a minute. I'm having an existential crisis. Where's my outro button? Why is it all the way over there? When did I move that? Weird. I'll fix that tomorrow too. Well, we got back on this horse after a break, didn't we? Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for weathering the issues. Thank you for dealing with technology as it is. I will get better at this and straighten it out. Thanks so much for being here. Thank you for your questions. Thanks for your support. Thanks for your chats. If you liked this and you want more of it, the two best things you can do are, one, give me a follow over here on Twitch. If you want to see more content like this, the best thing you can do is jump on the Patreon, patreon.com/JohnHelpsYouCreate. And that'll make everything here possible. Keeps the lights on, keeps the cats fed, keeps the software up to date, keeps the internet bill paid, even though apparently the stability is horseshit. All the same, yeah, it's still telling me it's unstable. All the same, it's delightful to have you here. Thank you for being here. You guys, as always, save my life. Remember that you matter, you're good enough, you care, all power to all people. You matter to somebody, you matter to me. It was great to be here, and I will see you again right back here. Well, if you're on the Patreon, I will see you right back here Friday evening. And if you are looking for the next Monday night stream, we will be right back here Monday night, January the 17th, for who knows what kind of topic. We'll figure it out. That'll get announced soon, and I'll see you, of course, next week for the next Writers Chat on January the 19th. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate your patience with the delightful technology, and I will talk to you guys very, very soon. See ya!